Welcome to Sports Talk Weekly. My name is Sean Aspila Garissa. Today, yet again, we are joined by another sports personality. This is the show where we unpack sports with sports people. We have Mr. Nicholas Udi Jacobs, top coach. We are talking about over 20 years of coaching experience, numerous titles, Stars, Civics, Black Africa, Pirates, you name it, national teams from the ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, Udi, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much, Sean. Nice to be here on your show, to be able to share my life of football, my love affair, as I call it. So yeah, nice to have this, and a beautiful thing that you have going on.
Top coach, as many of us don't also know that you are also a teacher. As schoolboys, when you are a schoolboy and your teacher is also into soccer, especially he's coaching in the flagship league. This is a plus. This is something that really goes into a young boy's head. Just tell us about who Udi is for those who don't know you beyond the soccer field, what you do beyond soccer, and just a brief background of yourself.
Well, to be honest with you, I think you summed it up well. I schooled at Emma Greef in Kommersdal. After my formative years in Uppington, my father sent me back to his hometown, where I schooled, and I started my schooling career. And I started with Emma Greef and with the likes of Ricardo Manetti around me, and that's where the football bug bit me, and also the fact that I stayed near Kommersdal Stadium. So I basically, literally, grew up at Kommersdal Stadium. Even at times not eating the whole day and surviving on the peels of oranges that people that normally had at halftime. You know, I still have the smell of that oranges at halftime. Either the flagship teams or the lower league teams, and even us as school teams, we would have oranges at halftime. So we would survive on those peels for the entire day and just spend that whole day at Kommersdal Stadium. And that's where my formative years was at. And you mentioned the schoolboys, and it's quite fascinating to hear, or to also that I had a similar style growing up, because my coach at school was Mr. Ruben James, and at that time he was playing for my local club, the club that I adored, Young Ones, which was one of the most feared outfits in Namibia, and everybody that knows the Kings at Night would relate with me in what I'm saying. So I grew up in the same fear, and I looked up to Ruben James. And today I look back and I say I got it from him, because even at school, when he was not around, you know, teachers would sometimes be busy. I would take the lead and I schooled with the likes of Paige Ananias. He was my classmate up to matric, and I even took Paige to Young Ones, because I saw what he could do with the football, and I said, no, I want to take you to my team. But at that time, he didn't make it into that team, so he went back to African Blizzards, and he later on played for Tigers against Young Ones, and he killed us. So that was one of the biggest regrets, that we could not sign Paige, although later on he came and he played for Young Ones. So my years is basically growing up partly in Uppington, schooling there, and then coming back to Windhoek with my mom. After my father's passing in when I was what is today grade 3. Standard 1 at that time. So I came back to Windhoek, and I started school at Emma Greef, from where I went to Kommersdal Primary and also matriculated at Cosmos. So I grew up in Kommersdal, as they call our area, the Laveld. It's a notorious area. I grew up with thugs, to be honest with you, but great personalities, because we could learn so much from them. Also the fact that I could withstand the social evils that they were going through also is remarkable, because here we witnessed a lot of things, but also we knew each other, and we supported each other in our endeavors. Played street football in those streets. Those streets were not dusty, but they were tarred, so we could play street. We swam in the rivers whenever it was rainy season, and Katatura swimming pool was our go-to place in summer heat, like we are experiencing now. So brilliant years, to be honest with you. I have no regret looking back. If I have to do it over again, I would. played some tennis. I can play tennis. I can play cricket. I can play rugby. I can play soccer, obviously. And it was just in the environment that we grew up, just taught you a little bit about everything. Even the traditional games, the amagoose, and those we used to play with the girls in the streets. And it was just nice growing up in Khomasdal. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's Woody for you. Um, Later on, I started working. My first job was at Country Club. Then I later on moved to Simot. And then I went to the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, where I spent almost 12 years, later incorporated into Namibia Wildlife Resorts. So I was a resort. I grew up to be a resort manager at various resorts across Namibia, one of them being Korigas, where I also coached Robert Chantis, and I rubbed shoulders with the late Bonnie Creer that will be laid to rest this coming weekend, and many others. And that's a journey that is so eventful and so pleasant, and has more good times than bad times, to be honest with you.
You speak so fondly of your growing up. In that, did you play a bit of soccer? How did your coaching career begin? Where did it begin? You speak of very early times where you brought Page. I'm
Yeah.
sure you were as young as him, but you talk about bringing him to young ones.
Yeah.
Where did your coaching career? When did you realize you had coaching in you?
Well, maybe now looking back at it, I had it all along, because we would organize a local team. We had a local team playing in Rossing sponsored the league. It was called the Junior League, and there was teams like Crystal Palace. I don't know if you can relate to Crystal Palace, Joris Cosmos. These were some of the guys that played there. Percy, Gary Sepp, some of the Hans Oko Kasibo's brother. He played in that league. There were some formidable players. Murray Davids played in that league. So we had a team. It was called Parkside. From our local area, we had a team called Parkside. So me and a good friend of mine, we already started running the team. Although we were still players, we were gathering the players and get them around. And then that's I think this started way back. And like you said, I played some soccer. I at least managed to get into the school team. But it was getting into young ones that I loved so much at that time. I wanted to play for them so much. I wanted to don that red and white, and but it was not meant for me, because I played, or at least let me rather say I trained amongst illustrious players. I can mention the likes of Dolphy Campbell, one of the best players I've seen. Stakes Low, and also his father coaching us. Rudy's grandfather Albert Low coaching us at that time. Otto Landsberg, Rees Norkeer, Kossie Springbok, Lance Willems. I trained and I was amongst them, and I learned my ropes there, and it was just unbelievable. But I could not, and work also didn't allow me to, and I was later on sent to Dunfermline to go and work in Dunfermline. So training times was quite difficult. So, and then the coaching bug bit as early as '97. I would be on one of my off days. You normally get 8 days off a month. You would work for a whole 3 weeks consecutively and get 8 months off. So I would come home, and Khomasdal Stadium is near, so I went up there. And there I found a team with the name of Diamond United training. At that time it was run by Ursula and her late husband Randall. They owned Diamond, the bar, next to Black Rock, where Black Rock is now. So they were running a team. They were keeping some of the youngsters off the street from the location. And I went up there, and they were coached by one of the guys that I know. And I was just standing around and trying to help. And these guys, they saw something in me. And they said, "Woody, why don't you come help?" And I said, "By all means." So whenever he could not turn up for training, because he would work late, he was that time in construction, Hannes, I would be roped in to help the team. And then I saw, but wait a minute. And basically everything I've learned, I now started to teach these boys. But I was always a believer. My philosophy has always been about the football. I wanted to play a carpet football. Young ones played that kind of football. My beloved team in England is playing that kind of football, Arsenal at that time. And Liverpool also, in the time of Liverpool, when Liverpool was immense, with John Barnes, John Ulrich, Kenny Dalglish, and Peter Beardsley. I didn't wanted to support Liverpool because I didn't like dominance. I liked the underdog. That's why I also don't support the All Blacks because I feel that they are too powerful. That's why I also don't support Brazil because I feel they're too dominant. And I always like the underdog. So I started supporting Arsenal. Also, Arsenal was also a local team from my location, the late Bobby Seizing, starting that team with the likes of Tolly van Wyk, Ricardo Manetti playing in that team, Wim van der Kolff, and then various others. What a team! Gola van Staden in the ranks. So then the coaching bug bit, and I thought, but wait, I'm actually good at this. And that's where I started. Very young age, I started, and I never looked back. I attended my first coaching course in 2001, B license course that I did with SKW and the German football or the Berlin Football Association. Heinz Werner was our instructor. A massive tournament, a massive course that was put together because years later when I went to Germany to get coaching training, the content that I covered in that course was basically the content I covered in Germany. So it just showed. So I never looked back. And in 2001, also Civics came knocking because they saw this young coach that's doing well with the youth team, Rudy Lowe, Heinrich Isaacs, the late Franklin April, Ivan Govasev, Bradley Verman, Ellington Papi Gishirimuye, Enrico Afrikaner, Rian Klute. Sure. The team was just phenomenal. We would wrap up all the tournaments in Kommersdal and Katatura. We would play against a team called Bush Warriors with the likes of the late Victor Helu. What a player he has been, and the rival, and especially him and Rudy Lowe. And then it was Shora, Ronnie Gavenji. We had a team. And then later on, because we evolved, Mark Isaacs also to mention, some of them went to first division clubs and Premier League clubs. I think one of the first to go was Rian and Enrico. They joined Pirates, and Ivan. Ivan for me was one of the players that I think never realized his full potential. I think he could have been a very Govase, Kumalo, what they call Kumalo. We went to Bay Hill. We played in Bay Hill tournament under 19 in Cape Town, sponsored by Metropolitan at that time. We reached the quarterfinals at both stages, and Ivan was just immense. Heine also stood out, went with me, Rudy Lowe. We had some quality players. And then me, Asprilla, Heine, and Franklin joined Civics. And the others went on to Ramblers and Pirates and the like. And that's how my journey in the Premier League began.
Coach, when you speak of the qualifications and the background coaching, it almost reminds me of you being an educator and somebody who really believes in seeing the process through. It makes me think of an example like James Brace, somebody from the neighborhood, how he is a coach, how he developed into what he's developing in. Football there has been no football in the past few years in this country. Recently, I saw there was a grassroots coaching course at NFL. I want to understand how does coaching development, there's a lot of emphasis on only developing players, but developing young coaches are going in these courses for this. How does that contribute to developing our football? I want you to speak about that with me, Coach.
Well, you could not have summed it up better. Simply because coaches' education is a key, or if it's not the integral part of development of the game. Because if it's like teaching, if the teacher is good, the student will be better. You get what I'm saying? But if the teacher cannot transfer knowledge, then how will the learner receive that knowledge? So if coaches' education in this country, and it has also stalled, we must be honest. The last time we did any CAF license was 2014, 2015. And that's 7 years ago. Now CAF has come up with a CAF convention that Namibia must adhere to. And the technical director, or the acting technical director, Ms. Jackie Chipanga, will tell you exactly what are the requirements from CAF for us to have CAF courses. The FIFA course is a basic course, but it's not a licensing course. It doesn't license you to coach anywhere. And this is the problem where South Africa and Namibia is sitting right now. Because both these countries or federations, associations, are not adhering to the CAF convention. Hence, they cannot roll out CAF courses. Or South Africa, I see that they are now in the process of doing that. But you can see that most of their coaches, if they play Champions League, they cannot sit on the bench because they don't have the required license. And the structure works like this. We have a D license, a CAF D license, which is your grassroots license. Yeah. These are now for primary school. It's now your 7 to 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. This is now courses for those coaches. Then we have a C license that is more your youth, that is equivalent to a youth license, where you can coach the youth. And your B license and your A license. And then obviously on top of them is a pro license that is not yet in Africa. CAF tried a pilot project of which Pitso Masemane attended, and they were the first recipients of that course, but it also stopped thereafter because we have a serious problem with continuity in especially in CAF, because CAF is the mother body or the umbrella body of all member associations, and they roll out coaching. Now your CAF A license is equivalent to a UEFA A license, and then UEFA obviously has the pro because they have professional football in their federations or associations. So what was happening here is basically to equip, because there's no testing. If you look at that course, there was no assessment. In a CAF course, you'll write a written exam, you'll do a practical, and you'll do an oral exam. And that's what I did in my A license. I also did the same license. I had to convert the license I got in Germany and convert it to a CAF license. You get what I'm saying? And I did the same. We went through a written test and all these things. Laws of the game, all the facets of the game is covered in there. So I believe, and I think to be fair and not to be prejudiced, is that I think under the circumstances, Coach Jackie or the TD is really trying to get as many coaches educated on the principles of training, on the principles of coaching. I think she's trying. Although I think it's still not have reached the majority of the people that we would want to. And what I mean by that is that I believe that the players that played the game would be a better suitor to bring back into the game, to make that evolution into coaching, or not just coaching, but also refereeing or administration, because who understands the game better than a person who played it, who went through it, who experienced it? You get what I'm saying? My feeling is, I look at, and I spoke to Rudy yesterday, and I talked to Bradley, because these are my boys I grew up with, and I tell them you need to make the step up. You need to make the step up. But then the other problem of the former players is the fact that they want to start coaching at the highest level. But I learned my ropes. I coached in second division. I coach at youth level. I coach at second division. I coach at first division. I coach at Premier League. And at any time I can go back and forth, because it's universal. But I always tell the coaches, learn your ropes. Learn your ropes, bide your time. Go to the school in your area and say, as part of my corporate social responsibility, I want to coach the under-13s. You get what I'm saying? I want to coach the under-15s. And then you maybe ask an hour off from work and you come and coach those boys. Because teachers these days don't have the time like in the past, where they would coach us and help us. You were a student. You were at Concordia, and you were coached at that time by the teachers there. But this time around, teachers have other things to do. They also have businesses that they are running, because to supplement the salary that they're getting from teaching is not enough in the current economic state or socio-economic state that the country is in.
Yeah, but I asked this deliberately because
No.
you see, coach, when the league is on, there are these people who do not understand the dynamics of coaching. They ask, why is this coaching merry-go-round?
Yeah.
Because the pool,
the pool is very small.
The pool is very small.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking. The development is not concentrated on, and then people think, why does it go from? Like for example, this probably coach
all the teams.
All the teams.
Yeah.
One would ask, well, it must be frustrating. You want to go beyond borders. You want to go into South Africa. Those limiting factors. That's why I'm asking. That development or education of coaches. Who's responsible for also ensuring or availing rather opportunities for coaches to grow?
Look, to be honest with you, if I can step away from coaching today to allow a new pool of coaches to come in, I would gladly do it. I'm ready to take up roles like sporting director, technical director. I'm ready for that because I know that I've gained the experience to do that. And I'm honest with you, I would love to sit back and help a younger coach come through. But now, ever since Klaus Stark left, how many CAF courses did we have? Just let's do a survey, a diagnostic on how many coaching courses we have done to qualify coaches to coach in the Premier League, to coach in the first division and the second division, and even at national team.
What is the minimum requirement?
The minimum required for Premier League and a team playing in the Champions League is a E license,
Which many don't have.
which many don't have. I can name you the number of coaches that got that qualification. Some of them also went and they started choosing other careers and they went by the wayside and they're not there. That makes Woody Jacobs and some of the others renowned names. When people have to choose coaches, they obviously have to go for us.
Coach, former women's team coach, former national assistant. Many of us who follow you would think you've never had that fair chance at the national team.
I didn't.
You still think you'll be back, and why did you leave the last time when you were part of these portfolios?
With the Brave Warriors, when the opportunity came, I jumped at that opportunity. But in any relationship, you sometimes hit a brick wall, and I felt at that time, was I wrong? Was I right? I don't know. I can't tell. But I chose to leave because me and the head coach, we had a difference in opinion, and I was not undermining him or any sense, and we later on solved the problem. But for me, I felt that it's rather better that I leave because it seems at times my personality is too over demanding or overcompensating, that people feel maybe that I want to take over the show. It's not the case. When I was in that position, I gave my utmost, and I loved our time there because we achieved something. We managed to qualify for CHAN with our first attempt, and that is an achievement, and I'm proud of that achievement. So I'm part of that team that qualified for CHAN in 2020, for the 2020 competition, which was 2019. So for me, that was that. The Brave Gladiators, I got another opportunity with the Brave Gladiators, and according to me, I did well. I had 7 games, I won 4 games, I drew 2, and I lost 1 against Zambia in the COSAFA Cup. I was on the brink of qualification. I lost out on third place Africa, third place in Africa, AFCON, women AFCON, to Zambia on a away goal, playing both matches away. One in Lusaka, the other one in Johannesburg. Now, because Namibia is this country that is so diverse that we know each other's personality traits, the difference is there, and we difference on tribes and all these things, which I don't know because I feel I'm a tribeless person. I was taken away from the Gladiators. If the NC and the technical director can tell the nation why I was taken away, I would be glad. I would be very glad. But those were my experiences. Just like in 2014, when I took a team that consisted of the Peter Shalulilas and the Wanku Gaumas and Aubrey Amsteps and Ivan Gambaripas, I took them to Ghana, did very well in the preparation, just at the last hour for the team to be withdrawn from the Olympic qualifiers. The Olympic qualifiers that was just now played when Namibia lost 6-0. For the first time in two editions that we didn't qualify, that we didn't enter, and now the third time we entered. Understandably so. So I don't have a problem, but I stand my ground. I believe in my ability, and I believe that I've experienced football at a level that I can open my mouth and proudly say, I don't want to be someone who must be suppressed or must suppress my personality to say that you are now content and you can stay in the job. I rather be this person standing up for what I believe is right and what is wrong than to be somebody that will, for the sake of being in a job, be suppressed. I think it also happened at UNAM. At UNAM, I had a 3-year contract. Corona came, COVID came, in 2015, in 2020, and UNAM cancelled my contract because they said there was no football at that time, while I had a 3-year contract. So sometimes you don't know what you are doing right, you don't know what you are doing wrong. I took UNAM from 15th place when I took over the job from James Brits, and I took them to 4th place.